Today is day one of 4 days off. Boy, do I need it. Work at the hospital has been absolutely crazy. As I'm sure everybody knows, that any healthcare workers that have not had a COVID vaccine are due to be fired as of September 27th, which has caused quite an alarm throughout our area, and this is just Western New York. I can imagine what it is all across the United States. I had no idea it was going to be hot today. It's 86 degrees here. I had wanted to get into the lathe. All I have left to do right now is find some wood. So I was going to go outside and look around and see if I could find like some branches that might be adequate to put on the lathe and, you know, get a little practice in. Meanwhile, I had gone up to the Amishken the other day and I took some pictures and a little bit of video to show you. It's just, the ride up there is so beautiful, and then going up there is just, it's a breath of fresh air for me. I love going there. Got some veggies, came home and froze up a bunch of stuff. It was, like I said, it's always a pretty drive, and people are surprised when they see stuff like this type of scenery because they think New York, the state of New York, is like skyscrapers, I guess, and concrete, when they don't realize it's quite a lot of country. So, I also got a little story to tell you about some bad luck my son had. If those of you who watch me all the time know that he is a beekeeper, and he had some catastrophe happen the other day, and we're hoping for a good outcome, even though pretty bad stuff happened, but I'll get into that too. And well, let's just get on with the video here and see what's been going on. I forgot to mention, we went on a picnic for Labor Day, and guess what? We were surrounded by fatwood. And I know that people are talking about they want to find fatwood, but they're not sure what to look for. And it's different from state to state where you find your fatwood, what trees you find it in. So I thought, well, for New York State, since we just found all that fatwood, I am going to show you some recording I took at the park that we were at and found fatwood. So I got fatwood video. Well, I guess I'll start with the story for my son. Where he lives, he rents the property, and in the backyard, it's like a double lot. There's part of the lot is the house they live in, and then the back is actually a lot that a house should be on, but it's not. It's lawn, and he has all his plants and things back there, as well as his beehives. And I can't tell you how many he had as far as full beehives with 3 layers, 3 boxes, whatever, and then he had some nukes. But he had quite a few, and he had actually not even harvested the honey, and he was estimating he had over 100,000 bees out there because there were so many of them. The neighbor to the side of him had a tree that hung right over their backyard. It actually they had just had a branch of it removed. It's so big that the branches are trees in themselves, and they had one of the branches on their side removed. And in doing so, it started to look like the tree was leaning even more over my son's yard. And in fact, it came down the other night. We had a bad storm, and he called me. He was so upset. The tree came down and landed on his beehives. It smashed his blackberry bushes, his fig tree, a bunch of things. And I don't know if you see it in the pictures that I put in here. He had a jet ski parked at the edge of the property. It hit that. It hit the basketball net. And like I said, most of all that he's upset is it smashed the beehives. Well, the problem then became the bees were everywhere and they were mad. And while the city officials came and the landlord next door came and said, haha, it's not my problem, it was hanging over your property, which we suddenly found out that in fact is true. If your neighbor's tree hangs in your yard and falls down, you have to pay to have it taken care of, not them. It's crazy. You would think it's their tree, it's their responsibility, but nope, that's not the way it works. If you want to get any satisfaction, you need to notify them legally, which is registered mail by an attorney or whatever, that their branch is hanging over your property and you're in fear that it's going to come down. I know, it's the craziest thing. It just, to me, makes more sense that it would be, oh, your tree fell in my yard, please take care of it. But nope, that's not what happened. So in the meantime, the town officials, people are complaining that they're getting bit by bees because the bees have gone apeshit. Anyway, my son got bit like a dozen times. In fact, he had to go to the doctor today because he blew up from how many bites he got. He thinks he got stung something like 12 times, at least in the one day anyway. 12 times in one day. Sorry, I had to get a tissue. So we went on Facebook and we put out an emergency request. Any beekeepers, please help. My son's bees were smashed. We want to try to catch as many of the bees as we can. Hopefully catch the queen. And luckily for us, there's a nearby farm that donated a box that they had stored somewhere. And so he could put the bees together. So he had to go in there and salvage whatever he could. And then if that wasn't bad enough, he's trying to salvage, climbing amongst this tree and stuff, and salvage what he can of these bees that are biting him because they're mad. And then the wasps came because the hives were full of honey, because he had not gotten around yet to collecting the honey, and the wasps came to eat the honey. So after he got as much salvaged as he could, he had to burn everything that was left to stop the attack of the wasps. Everything's calmed down now. There is bees going in the box. He doesn't know for sure if there's a queen in there. I think there is. Otherwise, I don't think those bees would be going in that box like they are. So he's hopeful that they won't swarm and they'll stay in that box. So that's fingers crossed. A lot of prayers have been out for that. Hopefully, that this will all come together again, because he's had so many problems with these hives, with the neighbors complaining. They're referring to them as wasps. They're being stung by wasps, but they're thinking it's his bees that are biting them, so they call the police all the time, and it's really ridiculous how people act. But in any case, I got a couple of pictures to show you this. It's actually part of a tree that fell, even though it takes up his whole backyard, the part that did fall. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully everything will come together and the bees will stay in the box, and there is a queen in there, and they'll all be happy again, and this thing will get resolved. So let's see what the pictures look like. This is just some of the vegetables I've bought at the Amish. Pretty cheap too. Those peppers are $4 a basket, and the zucchinis and onions were $5 a basket. And this is, of course, is the little farm that I go to, one of many, with up in Amish country. And they also raise turkeys. They sell them at Thanksgiving time. There they are over there, little gobblers. But this is such a beautiful farm. This particular family has 12 kids. Kind of an average size for Amish. And then, like I said, the scenery is just always so enjoyable. And here's a little bit about my fatwood discovery the other day. This tree is what I call a red pine, and I just chipped off a piece of fatwood off of it. There is a stump up there, not a stump, it's whatever you call it, where a branch was sawed off by the town. And as you can see, that is like hard as a rock. And my son really wanted to cut that whole chunk right off of there, but it's a public park, and no, we cannot cut. But look at the little piece we got off of that, just that little tiny piece I pried off. Solid resin. And they're really tall, these trees out here. Long needle, red pine. Some people call them ponderosa pine. So the story about fatwood goes a few years back at a state park near here. There was a lot of trees that came down during a storm. A lot of red pine came down, and my son happened to be driving by while there was a crew out there cutting the trees up, and he stopped and asked them what they were doing with them, and they said just cutting them down because they were a hazard, because some of them were leaning on others, which they call that widowmakers. And he had asked about what they were going to do with them. They said nothing. They were just going to leave them there basically rot. And they asked him why he was interested. And he explained to them what fatwood was, which most people up here have no idea what it is. And they told him, go ahead and take all you want. And of course, that led to a day where we had gone back, him and I, to get some. And this woman stopped us, said she was the park ranger, whatever it was, and told us we were not allowed to take any fatwood. And he explained that the crew had told us that we could. And she said, well, they weren't the representatives for the park. In fact, they were hired just to do that job of cutting down the trees. And in fact, it's illegal to remove wood from any state park. So, sadly enough, some of the best fatwood trees that we've seen are all in state parks. So it's tricky to find, once you identify the tree and you know it's got good fatwood, like we know that the ponderosa pine or the red pine has great fatwood. It's a question of finding it on a property where you're actually allowed to harvest it. That's the tricky part. You don't want to be going around on, public property and get in trouble for cutting down. And in fact, it's like the trees are dead. The best ones to get it from are dead. You don't want to really start chopping down live trees. But I'm saying, if you could find it laying dead, you could harvest the fatwood. But if it's on public property like a state park or whatever, you can't. So then you, therefore, would be lucky if you knew somebody who had a lot of property and you could go search the property for it and find fatwood.